My wings were torn, the raindrop was crushing me to the ground. That's when I realized how fragile life truly was. The world had become a battlefield, and I was losing. But how did I get here? Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment everything changed. 3 days ago, I wasn't even me. I was trapped in darkness, wrapped in what felt like a prison of my own making. The transformation was happening, and I had no control over it. My body was dissolving, rebuilding itself atom by atom. The terror was indescribable. Imagine dying and being reborn simultaneously, feeling yourself disappear while something entirely new takes your place. Then came the crack. Light poured in through a tiny fissure in my chrysalis, and I knew it was time. My new body pushed against the walls that had contained me for what felt like an eternity. When I finally broke free, the world exploded into colors I had never imagined. Everything was so bright, so vivid, that it almost hurt to see. My wings were wet, useless things hanging from my back. I had to wait, vulnerable and exposed, as they dried and hardened. Those first minutes felt like hours. Every sound made me freeze, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of something massive moving through the air. I didn't know then that I was hearing my first airplane, something so large and fast it defied everything I thought I knew about flying. When my wings finally caught the first breeze, the sensation was unlike anything I could have imagined. I wasn't walking or crawling anymore, I was dancing with the air itself. The wind became my partner, lifting me higher than I ever thought possible. For those first precious moments, I felt invincible. But then came the shadow that would change everything. A massive shape blocked out the sun. I looked up to see something enormous descending toward me, a bird, its eyes focused directly on me with predatory intensity. Its beak was like a spear, sharp enough to split me in half with a single strike. This was my first real lesson about being at the bottom of the food chain. I dove toward the ground, using gravity to build speed my inexperienced wings couldn't generate on their own. The bird followed, its massive wings barely needing to flap as it gained on me. I could hear the whoosh of air as it struck, missing me by millimeters. My heart, if butterflies have hearts, was beating so fast I thought it might explode. I zigzagged between blades of grass that towered over me like trees, each one offering momentary shelter. The bird's frustrated cries echoed above as it struggled to follow my erratic path through this miniature forest. Finally, it gave up, soaring away to find easier prey. I had survived my first predator, but the lesson was clear: everything in this world was bigger, stronger, and hungrier than me. That night, I found shelter under a leaf as darkness fell. Sleep, I discovered, was not optional, it was a desperate necessity. In the dark, new dangers emerged. Spiders, their legs moving with silent precision, wove webs that could trap me forever. I spent hours frozen in place, afraid that the slightest movement would alert them to my presence. The cold was another enemy I hadn't expected. My body temperature dropped with the air around me, making my movements sluggish and my thoughts unclear. I pressed myself against the underside of the leaf, using its residual warmth from the day's sunlight. Every hour that passed felt like a small victory against the night that wanted to claim me. Dawn brought new challenges. My first priority was finding nectar, the fuel that would keep me alive for another day. But flowers, I learned, were not the safe havens I had imagined. Other creatures competed for the same resources. Bees, massive and territorial, buzzed warnings when I approached their chosen blooms. Their size advantage meant they always won these confrontations. I discovered that timing was everything. Early morning, before the bees fully awakened, offered the best opportunities. I had to work quickly, my long tongue probing deep into each flower to extract the precious nectar. Every meal was a race against time and competition. And that's when the weather turned against me. Dark clouds gathered with shocking speed. The first drops of rain began to fall, each one massive from my perspective. A single drop weighed more than my entire body. When one hit me directly, it was like being struck by a cannonball filled with water. I was knocked from the flower where I'd been feeding, tumbling through the air with no control over my flight path. The storm intensified rapidly. What humans might call a light shower became a catastrophic deluge from my viewpoint. Each raindrop that connected sent shock waves through my fragile body. My wings, designed for gentle breezes, became useless in the chaos. They absorbed water, becoming heavy and unresponsive. I crashed into a puddle that had formed in a leaf's curvature. The surface tension created walls around me like a liquid prison. My wings, now soaked, couldn't generate enough force to lift me out. I was drowning in less than a teaspoon of water, struggling against physics that favored everything larger than myself. Panic set in as I realized how helpless I had become. This wasn't a predator I could outmaneuver or a competitor I could outsmart. This was the raw indifference of nature itself, and it was killing me without malice or intention. Subscribe and comment, the most shocking part of this story is about to come. My legs scrambled against the smooth surface of the leaf, finding no purchase. The water level rose as more rain collected around me. I was going to die here, in this tiny pool, invisible to the massive world above. No one would witness my struggle or mourn my passing. In the grand scheme of things, I was nothing, a speck of life that would disappear without trace or consequence. But that's when something unexpected happened that no one would ever expect. A single ant appeared at the edge of my watery prison. She was smaller than me, but she moved with purpose along the leaf's edge. For a moment, our eyes met, if ants have eyes that can meet with butterflies. I don't know what passed between us in that instant, but she began to work. Using her mandibles, she grabbed small debris, tiny twigs, pieces of bark, fragments of dead leaves, and began building a bridge toward me. It was crude, but it was hope. Each piece she placed created a small platform, a stepping stone that might lead to my freedom. The ant worked with incredible determination, seemingly immune to the rain that continued to torment me. Her movements were precise, calculated. She understood physics in a way that my panic had clouded. While I had been thrashing uselessly, she was engineering a solution. When her makeshift bridge reached me, I grabbed onto it with legs that shook from exhaustion and fear. Slowly, carefully, I pulled myself out of the water. My wings were still useless, but my legs could carry me across the ant's construction to safety. Once I reached solid ground, I turned to thank my rescuer, but she was already gone. She had vanished into the rain as quickly as she had appeared, leaving me to wonder if I had imagined the entire encounter. But the bridge remained, proof that kindness could exist even in a world designed to kill me. The storm passed, and I found shelter to dry my wings. As the sun returned, warmth slowly brought feeling back to my body. My wings, though damaged, began to function again. I was changed by the experience, no longer the naive creature who had emerged from the chrysalis just days before. Here's what most people never understand about being at the bottom of the food chain. Every day is a miracle. Every flower reached, every predator evaded, every storm survived is a victory against impossible odds. Humans walk through their world largely immune to the constant dangers that surround smaller creatures. They don't feel the ground shake with each footstep of something larger, don't have to calculate whether that moving shadow means death from above. But there's also something profound about living so close to the edge of existence. Every sensation becomes intense, every moment precious. The sweetness of nectar tastes like pure joy when you've earned it by surviving another day. The warmth of sunlight on your wings feels like divine blessing when you've shivered through a cold night wondering if you'd see morning. That ant taught me something that would change how I saw my remaining days. We're all struggling in our own ways, fighting our own storms, trapped in our own puddles. Sometimes survival isn't about being the strongest or fastest, it's about recognizing when someone else needs help and having the courage to build bridges. I began to notice things I had missed before. A spider, carefully repairing its web after the rain. A bee, sharing space at a large flower rather than driving me away. A bird, choosing to hunt elsewhere when it saw me feeding peacefully. The world wasn't just a collection of threats, it was a community of survivors, each finding their own way to persist. My damaged wings never fully healed, but they carried me through the rest of that precious season. I learned to read the sky for signs of weather, to find shelter before storms arrived. I discovered which flowers bloomed at different times, creating a map of sustenance that could carry me from dawn to dusk. When autumn arrived, I felt the change in my body as surely as I felt it in the air. My time was ending, but it had been a good time. I had loved, in my own way, finding others of my kind and sharing in the ancient dance of continuation. I had contributed to something larger than myself. Share and subscribe to keep this journey alive. On my final day, I found myself back near the leaf where the ant had saved me. The makeshift bridge was gone, dissolved by countless rains, but the memory remained vivid. I had learned that life's fragility wasn't a weakness, it was what made every moment meaningful. As my wings carried me one last time toward the setting sun, I realized something that perhaps even humans don't always understand. It's not the length of life that matters, but the depth of experience within it. In my brief time, I had felt terror and joy, desperation and hope, loneliness and connection. I had learned that being small doesn't mean being insignificant. That being fragile doesn't mean being weak. That needing help doesn't diminish the help you can give others. The ant who saved me was smaller than I was, yet she possessed something I lacked in that crucial moment, the wisdom to build bridges instead of fighting currents. My story ends where all butterfly stories must, with autumn and the turning of seasons. But stories like mine continue every spring, when new voices emerge from chrysalises with their own lessons to learn and teach. Each life, no matter how brief or small, adds something irreplaceable to the vast web of existence. And perhaps that's the real miracle, not that we survive at all, but that we find meaning and connection in the brief time we're given. Even when we're just a butterfly, dancing with the wind for one perfect, fragile, extraordinary season. In those final weeks, I discovered something remarkable that most creatures never experience. I found others like me, not just other butterflies, but survivors. A tiny spider who had lost 3 legs to a bird attack but continued weaving. A beetle whose shell bore scars from countless encounters with predators. We formed an unlikely community, sharing information about food sources, weather patterns, and safe spaces. The spider taught me about patience and persistence. She showed me how to read the subtle vibrations in the air that warned of approaching storms hours before clouds appeared. The beetle shared his understanding of the ground-level world. He knew which leaves would hold water after rain, which flowers attracted the fewest competitors, and which shadows offered the safest rest. One evening, the spider shared something profound. Through her delicate movements, she conveyed that she had once been saved by a butterfly, one who had warned her of an approaching bird. That butterfly had been killed by the very bird she had warned about, just moments after saving the spider's life. The spider had been carrying that debt forward ever since, helping other small creatures when she could. This revelation changed something fundamental in how I understood my place in the world. I wasn't just living my own story, I was part of an ancient narrative of mutual aid that connected all small life. Every act of help, every moment of kindness, rippled forward through time in ways that individual creatures might never fully comprehend. As my time grew shorter, I began actively looking for opportunities to contribute to this network. I learned to spot other creatures in distress, a bee trapped in tree sap, a caterpillar lost far from its food source, an ant separated from its colony. Each rescue felt like a sacred duty, a way of honoring the ant who had saved me. When winter's first frost appeared on the leaves around me, I felt my body slowing down with peaceful inevitability. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had learned that death wasn't an ending. It was a transformation, just like the one that had brought me into existence. My final gift to the community was to choose my death site carefully. I positioned myself where my decomposing body would enrich the soil around a seed that had fallen nearby.